Welcome to the Terrible Podcast with your hosts from SteelersDepot.com, where you can find all your latest and greatest Steelers news. It's Dave Bryan and Alex Kozora, always lit, talking Steelers. And now, here's Dave and Alex.
Welcome to the Terrible Podcast, Season 12, Episode 141. He's Dave Bryan. I'm Alex Kozora, SteelersDepot.com. Thanks for being back with us here on this Wednesday evening, Thursday morning, depending on when you're catching us. A bit of an emergency episode here after the big news of the day on this Wednesday, basically right at noon. Pittsburgh Steelers signing Minka Fitzpatrick to a 5-year extension for New Year's being added onto his deal to make him the highest paid safety in football at just over $18 million a deal. So no surprise a deal was done. The surprising part is when the deal was done here in the middle of June.
Yeah, absolutely. Happy Wednesday to everybody. And I like these emergency podcasts, especially when they're centering around dealing with a contract signing. And as you mentioned, not a lot of surprise here overall, other than the fact that I had to look at the calendar real quick. June 15th. Wow. And we'll talk about the significance of that here a little bit later in the show. But as it is being framed right now, we're still waiting for more exact details with this. It seems to be a 4-year extension running through 2026 with a new money amount that's being reported right now, I think of $73.6 million. And basically a new money average, at least the initial reports. Well, once again, some of these things when the actual numbers come out, kind of mixed, kind of the numbers shift just a tiny bit here. But the new money average, you're looking like $18.4 million, at least with the initial reports. Now, my speculation all offseason was that, we were looking at 18 million new money average with Minkah. So I'm going to be super close on that. And I think the structure that I've had thrown out there is going to be pretty damn close on this as well, too. Once again, we don't know a lot of the specifics here. I know it is being reported $36 million guaranteed. We expect that to be fully guaranteed coming off of the TJ Watt deal with that had the first 3 years guaranteed. It sounds like if indeed this 36 million that's being reported is fully guaranteed, that's probably going to be the first 2 years of cash flow in there. I suspect.
And Watt was how many? 3?
Yeah, three. The first 3 years, effectively, of that deal were guaranteed there, and I think my speculation of the contract that I threw out was a little bit more than $36 million guaranteed as far as that goes. So I bet this thing's going to come in about where I speculated at, around a $21 million signing bonus. Probably around a $2 million base salary, fully guaranteed in 2022. So let's see, 21 and 2, that makes 23. That would probably mean a $13 million base salary in 2023 that's fully guaranteed. Either that, or what they'll do is they'll take, about half of that will be the base salary. Another half of that would be like, roster bonus that becomes fully guaranteed, in March. But the overview of it is probably the cash flow of this thing through 2023 will be $36 million. And we'll just have to see the terminology on the guarantees. Is it fully guaranteed? Is it, injury guarantee, skill cap guarantee, all that stuff that kind of works its way out here at a later portion here. Mm-hmm. I suspect that his cap charge will go down from the 10.6 whatever million. It might drop a little bit more than $3 million, Alex, maybe even closer to $4 million. Once again, we'll have to see how this thing is structured overall. It will drop. It's just a matter of how much will it drop. Obviously, Minkah was was previously on the books for a $10.612 million earnings and cap hit in 2022 as part of his fifth-year option being picked up by the team, well over a year ago there. So, I mean, this thing has gone just almost exactly the way we thought it would go, except for the key fact here that here it is June 15th, and history of this team when it comes to non-quarterbacks is these deals don't get done until at least after the start of training camp.
Right. No, I think you've done, as always, a wonderful job laying things out. And I understand a lot of this you can kind of just tell based on the market. But whenever you're trying to decide on a $21 million signing bonus in terms of your prediction and projection, do you ever struggle with that number, or do you feel like you're pretty much on target just based on what's surrounding the safety market?
I'm normally pretty close on that because A, you can look at past deals of the safeties, and B, you can look at past deals that the Steelers have done and look at the percentages of of the signing bonus, and just based off of historically how Omar Khan does these kind of deals. And then once again, just looking at at previous contracts around, you can ballpark these things now, or at least I am able to now at this point, be able to ballpark them pretty close. And I think buddy Joel Corey even gave me an attaboy in a DM about how close I came on this one as well too. So once again, we'll see what happens when the clothes come out of the dryer,
Right. and I like that,
and see how close this is. But I don't think I'm going to be too far off with any of the projections that I've thrown out there. The only question is it really the total value that they're saying it is? And are those is that $36 million fully guaranteed?
And I don't mean to jinx this, but I guess it's good timing. We plan to have Joel Corey on the podcast Friday, so we can talk to him about the Minkah contract, get his thoughts there. With the TJ Watt deal, what was initially reported, that was pretty much the actual contract, right? There wasn't a lot of fluff with that deal.
Yeah, I don't remember the initial, kind of specifics, but I think it pretty, if memory serves me, I don't think there was too much difference to come out of that there. Now, how much over are they mixing up kind of some of that old money amount with the total value there? Put it to you this way: if they're off with the total amount of the deal, and once again, I think I'm trying to switch back and forth in between tabs here real quick here to see what the actual total was being reported there, because there's that 0.6 in there that you kind of wonder if maybe that'll be a little bit lower than that. Let's see, it's showing. I've got the number at 84.212, and that's based on 73.6 million in new money. Now, will that new money end up being 73 million? Is somebody rounding up, rounding down or up? I don't know, but it's going to be pretty damn close to what's out there right now. And once again, I expect the signing bonus to be around 21 million in there. His first year cash take is probably going to be around 23 million, which means base salary plus signing bonus, and then the cash flow through next season being as how they're throwing out that 36 million. It really does make sense, and it matches up to kind of what I threw out there. That's probably going to be the first 2 years cash flow of that thing, meaning, what did I say, like a $13 million base salary in 2023.
Okay. And I'm going to sidebar too much, but the initial report on TJ Watt was 4-year extension worth $112 million, $28 million per year, $80 million fully guaranteed. And that's basically the terms of the deal in reality, correct?
Yeah, I think there was a little bit of difference when that one came out of the dryer for the fact that there was the 17th game in there or the extra week that had to be prorated or whatnot in there. So I think the numbers actually came out a little bit higher because of the needed proration in there.
Right. But we can remember the fully guaranteed. We were wondering, what does that mean? Is that injury guarantee, or is this actually the Steelers breaking the precedent? And we knew that once come to find out that they actually did break the precedent, guaranteed
Right.
the first 3 years. And so we can more reliably, I assume, take this 36 million guaranteed as closer to fact than fiction.
Yeah, I mean, knowing what happened last year, you think Minkah was gonna. That
Right.
was probably the first thing of the talks is, look, the lid is off Pandora's box right now. We're gonna make sure it stays off now, and that was a monumental. A lot of people probably still don't grasp how monumental that was with that T.J. Watt deal last summer there because of that, because of it being a non-quarterback and not only having the first more than just a signing bonus guarantee, but the first 3 years. Now, I think moving forward, I think you're going to see more in the line of the first 2 years fully guaranteed, which I think is going to be the case with Minkah here. I don't know. It'll be interesting to see if any of the language says anything about maybe any portion of Minkah's third year of this deal, maybe being guaranteed, let's say by March of the new year next year. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Right there. But Watts did not include any such language in there. It was a flat out first three years guaranteed.
Yeah. So at least for Pittsburgh, it's only 2 with Minkah, and that'll probably be the bar for the majority of players. If Diontae Johnson were to get an extension, would you expect 2 years fully guaranteed?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And we'll talk a little bit more of that probably here in the next 10 minutes or so.
Okay. But yeah, I mean, obviously there was no question about whether or not Minkah wanted to remain a Steeler, whether or not Pittsburgh wanted Minkah to remain a Steeler. Really, there was no question about what slot he was going to be. He was going to be the highest paid safety in football. Again, that number may be coming in a slightly tick above where we expected it to be. But I think part of that was, and you talked about this, I wrote about this for Steelers Depot Wednesday, is maybe the first change of the slight tweak of the Omar Khan business model compared to what Kevin Colbert would do, because TJ Watt, that deal went on to the 11th hour, very late, post camp, right before week 1 began. And with Minkah, it's not middle of June. There is no hold-in. There is no camp discussion. He'll be at camp, signed, sealed, delivered. And so maybe that's Khan saying, I'll pay that extra little bit right now, not to have this long negotiation, make this a story, even knowing it would get done, by week 1. But let's get it done now, out of the way. And as you'll talk about, I'm sure as well, now that it shifts the focus to guys like Chris Boswell and potentially Diontae Johnson.
Yeah, look, and you wrote about it, and it's probably going to be something that not a lot of people talk about, but that aspect of it is the biggest, it is the most newsworthy thing about this whole deal, because we've been talking about what the total amount would be, what the new money average is likely to be, what the guarantees are probably going to be, all those things. Nothing has been earth-shattering about what we've seen so far related to this deal, other than it's June 15th, Alex. I mean,
has a deal ever gotten done? I mean, they've gotten done, in February, Ben, and AB got one in kind of the winter, but at this time of year specifically, has one ever, a big money deal, gotten done?
Didn't they do Marquise Pouncey a couple of years ago, a lot earlier? But that was only like was it a 2-year extension or something along those lines? I'm trying to remember when when
you're right. I'm pulling it out June 12th, 2014, but that was a 5-year extension.
Was it a 5-year extension?
If Wikipedia is to be believed, yes. I'll trust them here.
Let me see here if I can. Because I remember something about that, and I think that was kind of related to maybe Ben saying you got to get him done, along those. I don't know how much pull maybe Ben had. What was the date that you had on that? I seem to remember June. Yeah,
June of 2014. Apparently got the 5-year extension then. So I don't want to pretend like Colbert's unprecedented, but typically speaking, these deals were getting done later than earlier.
Right. And I'm showing, let's see, the new details of that 5-year actually emerging on like June the 12th.
Yep. That's the date I have.
So, yeah, not that it hadn't been done before, and it makes you kind of wonder how much maybe Ben had to play in, had a part in that. I don't know. Maybe I can't remember how cap strung maybe they were at the time that they needed to get that done so they could get Pouncey's number down at the time. That obviously could have played a role in it as well too. But during this process, in a few of the podcasts that we've talked about, we said man, it'd be nice if they were able to beat guys like Jesse Bates and Derwin James to the altar, right? Just in case. And that obviously now has happened. That puts a lot. I tell you who's not liking what happened today: the Cincinnati Bengals and owner Mike Brown specifically, because they've been trying to keep to that guaranteed money, that old school new money principle as well too. And there's no way Jesse Bates and his agent obviously are missing any of this. And Bates is obviously wearing the franchise tag right now. And they have, I guess right now at this point, because he's wearing a tag, I think the Bengals have exactly 1 month to get a deal done with Jesse Bates. And if they don't get that extension done with Jesse Bates, then he's got to play under the tag in 2022 there. So, and you got to know that he's going to be pushing to get close to that Minkah deal, and that means the first 2 years of that deal being guaranteed. And we'll obviously see what happens with Derwin James. But kudos to Omar Khan for getting this done sooner rather than later, because now, and as you kind of hinted to there, man, this team now has a lot of time to work on getting to see what maybe they want to do with Chris Boswell and one Diontae Johnson.
And I'm sure Khan was the point man here, this first big deal as the Steelers GM, but let's also remember Cole Marcoux, who just got that promotion to, I forget the title, director of football administration, something like that. And I think he's probably got a bigger role in some of these contracts now. And so that's a name to watch there. But you're right. The focus now shifts into the summer months with Chris Boswell, Diontae Johnson. Boz, to me, that's going to get done. I have zero question about that. He probably will be the highest paid kicker in football. That's a smaller deal overall. It's a drop in the water compared to Minka Fitzpatrick. And then really the storyline becomes Diontae Johnson. I know that Aditi Kunkabala tweeted out today that Diontae Johnson has not been offered a contract. That should come as no surprise or alarm. It's June 15th, even knowing Minka got his deal done today. Johnson, that was never going to happen now. If it's going to happen at all, it will be late in the summer.
And we've talked, or I've said, during the offseason so far that my gut has been that, Diontae probably not going to get that deal. Well, I tell you, the way the money is setting up here, not the money. Let me preface that. The way the cap flow is setting up, the cap situation is setting up with all this. You start putting all the pieces of the puzzle together. I mean, let's say Minka's cap number comes down $3 million. Okay. And I'm going to use that on the low side because I think it might come down a little bit lower than that. As we've seen in my most recent cap update here, this team theoretically with the projected cost ahead of the Minkah deal had roughly around $3.5 million in cap space to spend. Now, obviously they have, over $20 million available, but a lot of that, is going to get used in projected, easy to project cost and all like that. So let's say they have about what we would call $3.5 million in effective cap space prior to the Minkah deal. Let's say you got another $3 million in cap space because of the Minkah deal. Well, now you're sitting on essentially $6.5 million in effective cap space that you can use. Now, if you sign Diontae Johnson to a deal equal to or slightly greater than the one that Minka Fitzpatrick just signed, well, his cap number is going to go up from the what do I have down in here? $2.79 million that it is now. His cap hit's going to increase, and probably be in the same neighborhood or slightly higher than whatever Minka's number settles at. Well, how do you make up that difference in the increase? Well, I just told you, you've got effectively around $6.5 million in additional cap space above and beyond what you're projected to need, the rest of the offseason there. And look, you might save them, another $1 million or $2 million in cap space, depending on how the Boswell deal gets structured on top of it. So unless they're going to go into the regular season with, even more cap space than they normally use, and like I said, the pieces of the puzzle kind of looking at them laid out on the table right now kind of makes you wonder that, they might be looking to get a deal done with Diontae Johnson after all.
Sure, but like you said, even before this deal, there was no financial obstacle in the way of getting this deal done, correct? It was just really a matter of, is he worth the money?
Right, because you've still got over $17 million that you could go get from TJ Watt.
The bank of TJ Watt.
The bank of TJ Watt with just a simple full restructure, Right. But I'm willing. I bet you dollars to donuts that Omar Khan's going to try his best to not touch that TJ Watt contract, if at all possible, there. And the way this is lining up, he might, it's not looking like they're going to have to touch that, Alex. And
which is crazy because we were thinking offseason Hayward and Watt would have to get restructured, and Hayward never did, and Watt might not have to.
And you can thank Tuitt obviously for the decision with Tuitt playing a big part in that. And that was the kicker right there. Obviously, if you still have Stephon Tuitt under contract, you wouldn't have that additional money that you got freed up there. So that was obviously a big line in the sand when Tuitt decided to retire there. So at this point, it's never been about cap, and it's never a bit about cap space really overall, because as we've seen the cap massaged not only by the Steelers over the years, but other teams as well too. It all comes down to average. New money average for Diontae, guaranteed money amount, and whether or not the two sides can agree on that. And I'm more in the camp now after this Minkah deal getting done this early too. On top of it, I'm moving more to the side that you're on. That it's becoming very plausible that they get a deal done with Diontae. And what's that amount going to be? 20 million, 21 million, 22 million?
It's going to start with a 2. I'll tell you that much.
I think so. I don't see how it does it. Now, if he agrees to something under $20 million a year, holy moly, what a deal, in my opinion there. Mm-hmm. But I don't think the talk starts until you talk about a $20 million new money average and the first 2 years guaranteed. So, if you're scoring at home, on a 4-year extension, you're talking about 4 times 20, that's 80. His old money is 2.79. You're looking at a minimum of a 4-year extension with the whole 5 years totaling out at 42.79 with at least $40 million guaranteed on it. And I think that's a starting point.
You said 42? You mean 82?
I mean, what did I say?
You said 5 years, 42 with 40 million.
I'm sorry, $20 million a year times 4, that's 80. And then the old money is 2.79. So 82.79.
With about 40 million.
With 40 million guaranteed.
So pretty similar to the Minkah structure.
Yeah, I mean, look, the structure would be similar outside of the numbers just being slightly higher,
Yeah, but in that ballpark. I mean, it's the idea. So again, they can afford it. If they want to do it, it's a question of whether or not they want to. I apologize for all the sidebars, but I always wanted to ask you this question. Do you get frustrated by the people who say the cap is a myth? Because that's such a common, easy phrase. And my thought has always been, and I've seen other people say this, I'm not the originator of it, I'm sure, but the cap is real. It's just more malleable than people think. It's flexible, can be massaged and manipulated much more than people realize. Right. And,
Tom Pelissero did just a real quick recap the other day after the Donald and the Cooper Cup deal. I think he was on Good Morning Football, and you should be able to find the clip easily on Twitter or something. He gave a quick rundown of why the cap is real, but yet how it's easy massageable and restructuring contracts. The player doesn't lose money. You're just moving money around. Sooner or later, you've got to account for every dollar that you spend, both cash and cap. Just from a cap standpoint, it's easier to manipulate and kick that on down the road as far as the accounting of the actual money. When you spend the money is spent. It's how you account for it against the cap, where a lot of people get thrown off, and they'll see a team go from zero cap space to $20 million, and then be able to sign two mega contracts and they say, oh, the cap's a myth. No, they're going to have to pay for that money, both in cash and against the cap. Well, not necessarily the cash part of it, because anything that's non-guaranteed, if a player gets cut, obviously they don't get that. But any bonus money that's paid out, that hits the cap at some point.
Mm-hmm. Right. And I think what the Rams CEO, I think it's Kevin DeMoff is his name, talked about was they're pushing that money, they're kicking that can down the road because they anticipate the cap going up year by year. And so that dead money percentage becomes smaller, 3-4 years from now, and it won't hurt as bad as it might in the current year.
Right. The cap is not a myth, but once again, it's easy to massage.
Right. So I figured that has to, because you hear it so much.
Yeah.
Right? And I love Pat McAfee, and those guys are all great, but they say it like once a show. They're saying the cap is a myth, the cap is a lie. And I just sit there and I know that burns you up, and it burns me up too, because it's not reality.
And look, teams have got to spend X percentage of, whatever the cap amount is for the league across, 2 and 4 years. Teams have got to spend up to a certain percentage of the cap amount in cash, that's part of the CBA. So in other words, let's say, just for hypothetical here, I forget, is that percentage like 89 or 90%
like 90,
now?
Yeah.
Now, let's just say that was a 1-year rule and a 1-year rule only. And let's say the mythical cap number, just throwing it out there for round purposes, was $100 million. Okay. And obviously, it's higher than that.
Yeah. We're making up numbers for ease of point. Yep.
That means, and if it was that means a team would have to spend at least $90 million in cash in that year to satisfy the CBA rule. Now, what counts as cash? Base salary, full signing bonus. If that's like, let's say Minkah gets a $21 million signing bonus as part of this extension that he just signed. Sure, that's allocated over that. You divide that by 5, and that's how it's allocated against the cap. But for cash spending purposes, the Steelers get credit for spending $21 million in cash in 2022.
Okay.
Along with whatever base salary. Let's say they give him a $2 million base salary. So the Steelers will get credit in 2022 for $23 million cash expenditure, even though $21 million, only a fifth of that $21 million will go against the cap in 2022.
Right. And that's the difference between cash and cap that you always emphasize. Do you have any idea how they pay out that signing bonus? Because I think most people think you just get a check for $21 million, and typically teams will spread that out over a longer period of time because they don't have $20 million in their bank just to hand out.
Right, and that's all in the negotiation part of it.
Right. But do you have any insight to how that gets paid?
A lot of times it's over a season, divided into now it's 18 checks in is
that just like part of their game check where that they'll get that?
Yeah. Okay.
Now
some teams, that's a better question to how many percentages of contracts maybe attempt to try to pay that out over a longer frame time, as far as just out of their bank account. But in nowadays, I would think most agents would kind of demand that signing bonus to be paid out in at least the first 18 months. You would think, but more realistically, the first 18 weeks, of that following season. But maybe that's another question that we can ask Joel Corey when we have him back on about what's the general normal payout threshold for a signing bonus.
And I think in Pittsburgh, it can even vary. I remember referencing Pat Freiermuth talking about his rookie deal, and I think he got his signing bonus all at once as one lump sum, but he said sometimes Pittsburgh will spread that out over, a certain amount of time. I think it depends on the person, if they kind of trust whoever that guy is to have this newfound wealth, but that's smaller numbers comparing Freiermuth to Minkah, so I imagine Minkah probably gets paid out over an 18 game season, 18 week season.
Right.
So that's the deal. Any other final thoughts here? Again, expected to get done. No surprise in terms of the terms, in terms of Minkah being the highest paid safety in football, all well deserved, and come a long way from Pittsburgh taking that leap, trading a first round pick for Minka Fitzpatrick after losing Ben Roethlisberger. A lot of criticism at the time for that. Just the historical aspect of it, Pittsburgh not having a first-round pick for the first time since the pre-Noel era, but it's just paid off in a big way for the Steelers.
Right, absolutely. So now we sit here and can start speculating about, speculating more about Boswell and Diontae Johnson moving forward, and I think we'll have some questions for Joe Corey on Friday, assuming we do indeed have him on the podcast as planned. So that's the plan where we sit right now. And once again, the biggest news coming out of this, I think, is hey, it's June 15th, and they got this done. So kudos to them for that.
Definitely. Last thing here, non-Minkah news. Check out the article Thursday. Talked with Trey Bell, who's going to be a Steelers intern for about a week of training camp as part of the Bill Walsh Diversity Coaching Fellowship Program. Spoke with him. He'd actually been with the team previously during the spring for a couple of days. We talked about his experience there and just his upbringing. Really good guy to speak with. So that article is going to go up early Thursday morning. I encourage you guys to check it out.
Absolutely. Good stuff. And I think you talked to him about 20 minutes or so, 30 minutes overall there. All right. So until Friday, you can follow me on Twitter at Steelers Depot. Follow Alex on Twitter at Alex_Kozora. Follow the show at Terrible Podcast. Email the show, theterriblepodcast@gmail.com. If you want to donate, go to SteelersDepot.com, hit the donate button. And also, if you'd like an ad-free version, go to SteelersDepot.com, hit the ad-free button, upper right navigational bar. Thank you for listening to this kind of emergency special edition of the Terrible Podcast with Dave and Alex.